And so, after 2 weeks of intense non-stop training, budget films is metamorphosized into this.
I know. It's not every day you see a talking triangle rambling on about World War II. But this is a large improvement from the last ones, as they were just flickering images. This time around, we should hopefully have better video quality, better sound quality, better educational value, more charismatic voice recordings from new and returning voice actors alike, and also the cookies again. Although I may make them easier to find this time. Also, as usual, I'll be here to talk you through everything as well. With that being said, let us begin. So before we begin, we need a little insight on what the build-up to the Second World War was. Before we start, we already know all about the Great Depression, and how it gave Hitler a chance to seize the title of Chancellor. That's all good. But why was Germany in such a bad position that the people had to rely on someone like Adolf Hitler? Well, we can go back to World War I, and we can summarise it down to a single point. Germany lost World War I. So what was their punishment? Well, this is a little something decided by the soon-to-be League of Nations, which is actually the coolest name for a bunch of government officials I have heard of ever.
We have a show for you tonight here in Paris. The Battle of Versailles. In one corner, Vittorio Emanuele Orlando, the beast from the east representing Italy. In another, we have the very best from the west, Lloyd George of Great Britain. In the other end, we have the Dart Destroyer George Clemenceau representing France. And finally, from America, the $1 Million Man Woodrow Wilson. All four of these big heavy hitters will be fighting over what happens to Germany. The overall winner with the most votes behind their idea will get to execute their plan. It is a free-for-all, and all cards are on the table. Stay tuned, folks. This is about to get very heated.
Nah, what they actually done is they had a civilised debate and a lot of back and forth. France finally got what suited them best. The surrender of all German colonies, the return of Alsace-Lorraine to France, cession of the Eupen-Malmedy to Belgium, Memel to Lithuania, the Hildesheim district to become Czechoslovakia, more land to Poland, Danzig to become a free city, demilitarization, and a 15-year terror occupation of the Rhineland for France, a fee of 6 billion, prevention of unity with Austria, full responsibility for the war, and restriction of the German army, to name a few of them. You could probably guess that Germany was a bit triggered that these two German idiots agreed to sign this, but you need to cut them some slack. They really had little choice left. Fast forward, and Hitler is about to gain a lot of power in Germany now. So where we last left off, Adolf Hitler was having a whale of a time as he finally became the Chancellor of Germany. He done some good, but his bad definitely outweighs his good. One of the really sketchy things he done in the beginning was starting the Enabling Act, essentially made it law to abide to Nazi Germany's law. Now he tricks some political figures into letting him be the Chancellor for an extended period of time. What are his first moves? Well, he bans all other parties, and then he withdraws from the League of Nations. Then he starts to violate the Treaty of Versailles by building up the military. Then he goes against the Treaty of Versailles again and unites with Austria. At this point, Neville Chamberlain steps in and decides to give him the Sudetenland. And then he tries to get more than they bargained for, and then tries to take Poland. At this point, it's dumb to watch, so Britain gets their head in the game and declares war on Germany. So we're entering the Second World War now, and a couple of major changes happen. To begin with, Neville Chamberlain resigned, and Winston Churchill, often referred to as the defender of democracy, became Neville Chamberlain's overall successor, in a lot of people's opinions. He satisfies lots of people's needs, makes some really good changes as well. He was also very, very different to Neville. He was a man of the people, and this led to immense popularity, so much so that in fact the poll said that 78% of the UK at the time approved of Churchill as Prime Minister. He was also a great public speaker because of this, and he was often never seen without a cigar, so he's not the best role model out there. Back on topic, he managed to get the big three together. His refusal to give up was one of the driving forces that led us to spoiler, but not really a spoiler since this has all happened before, winning the Second World War. Okay, I feel that since this is after all supposed to be a video on World War II, I need to go over some of the events that took place on the United Kingdom side. But I'll try my best to summarise it and keep it brief so that the video can move on to some more fun stuff. I feel a good place to start would be the Battle of Britain, a military campaign in which the UK's Royal Air Force defended the UK against the large squadrons of Luftwaffe, Nazi Germany's air force. Often, it is described as the first major military campaign fought exclusively by Air Force. The overall victor was the United Kingdom, and really it scared off the German Air Force until what is next, the Blitz, a nighttime bombing raid on Britain from Nazi Germany, resulting in about 43,000 civilian casualties and about another 139,000 wounded. Although this sounds bad on paper, the effects weren't as devastating as you might think, and it more so serves as a preparation of sorts for what they planned to come next, a German invasion on England. Also, Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, I just thought most people would know that, just an extra nugget of information. Moving on to Dunkirk, an event which sparked a full-length film that James actually done an analysis on. Anyway, the Dunkirk Evacuation was an operation led by the man himself, Winston Churchill, which managed to save nearly 200,000 British and nearly another 140,000 French and Belgian soldiers. Sadly, the cost for this was a high one to pay, and between 30 to 40,000 soldiers were left behind and captured by the Germans. Around 16,000 French and 1,000 British died during the evacuation, and Dunkirk was in ruins by the end of the battle. Overall, it was an Allied success, but we wouldn't have won without the sacrifices made. Okay, that's briefly some of the events that took place on Britain's side during the Second World War. This is extremely summarised, so you have to forgive me if I missed out on some more crucial events, as I'm just trying to get down a few of the important points before jumping onto the next section. Okay, I'm done here. Also, I changed up the background thing, so I thought the moving backgrounds are getting a bit distracting, so yeah, I think that's going to be what's happening for the next one. Okay, now that I've finished the events, I'm now looking forward to covering the rations. Yes, it's a difficult and still a sad topic to cover, but at least I can put some better music over it. So I forgot to do my research on this section, so I'm just going to ask the same questions to a professional, Mr. Todd Rogers. So since social distancing, we need to stay apart from each other.
Yes, and all that.
So Todd is going to do most of this segment while I take a quick bathroom break.
To begin with, the definition of rationing is allowing each person to only have a fixed amount. In other words, to distribute goods fairly amongst people. And that, in other words, is making sure each person gains a fair amount of food. Which reminds me, it was the summer of '97. We were youthful hooligans hanging outside Mr. Fred's second-hand goods store. My good buddy Johnson went inside with me. It comes back to the winter of ¡85. It was a cold and fateful night, and us kids were snowed in together. It was a big Christmas party that his parents were hosting. Our parents go back a long time, probably to the spring of '64 or so, when they met in a mountain, as his parents ran out of equipment and they traded homemade bread with one another. My mother's fresh bread. It reminds me of when my grandmother, who invented the recipe, it takes me back to the summer of '43, Back then, times were real harsh on her. Money was becoming tight, and she had to ration a lot of food due to the ongoing war. She was making everything herself due to it. Growing potatoes, milking cows, anything she could do to get some extra food for the family. It was a big family, and that was a good big family on a farm. Means more people to help with the harvest. In September, next autumn, the autumn of 44. That was a bad year for crops, that was. That reminds me, bad years. Hey, you couldn't get a year worse than the 30s. For the economy, hey, that rings a bell. Wall Street crash, aha! That cheap video essay. That was a funny one. Let's hope this one does better, am I right? Anyways, me and Johnson were hanging outside the store and said to Johnson, I says, "Why are we hanging out here, Johnson?" And he says back, if you wait here long enough, you can see something really, really cool. And I says, "Oh, what? Tell me, Johnson, tell me." And he says, "Rumour has it, on the street, you can, if you hang about there for about a couple hours until 3 AM, you can see Mr. Fred buying in stock from the store next door." And I says, "Wow, I can't believe it. Do you really think Mr. Fred of the second-hand goods store buys his stock from the first-hand goods store?" And then Johnson... Oh, what was I supposed to be saying? Oh, rationing, yeah. It's when the government equally gives food to everyone via, like, little checkbook things. And pretty much everything was rationed, including meat, tea, dairy products, and things like cereal and butter too. Eventually goods like fruit, fish, and potatoes weren't really rationed as much.
Okay, how'd the section go?
Pretty good, all things considered. Now, when can we discuss my paycheck? You know, reading this stuff out isn't as easy as it looks, you know?
Just take this and leave.
Whoa! I'm gonna buy a pony.
Okay, now that he's gone, I can discuss some more important and crucial and very, very serious matters. The Holocaust. The Holocaust. There's a lot that can be said about this, but I'm summarising again because I really don't like talking and researching about this. The Holocaust was a mass genocide of Europeans due to who they were, led by Adolf Hitler. The invasions are nothing compared to the Holocaust. This is the most wrong thing a person's ever done in their whole life. Between 1941 and 1945, over 5 million Jews were slaughtered, 5.7 million Soviet civilians, 3.3 million Soviet POWs, 3.3 million Poles, 600,000 Serbs, 270,000 disabled, 500,000 Romani, 200,000 Freemasons, 25,000 Slovenes, 15,000 homosexuals, 3,500 Spanish Republicans, and 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. It's clear to anyone that the Jews were the main target of this madness and that they suffered the most. The scary thing is it wasn't always religion. You could be killed over other things like your race or political beliefs. Some of these people didn't even know their fate. They were overworked, underfed, and abused. And what happened next after they're on the brink of death? Gone, executed, gassed away, forever, permanently. They were treated so poorly, and those who survived will never be the same again. Humanity has learned a great lesson of this, and we will never make the same mistake again. Boy, this video took a lot of effort, but hopefully you enjoyed it and picked up a thing or two. The new format took a very long time to make, and this is actually the longest video yet, so that's my reasoning for it being late. Thanks again to my voice actors for helping. Now, I've got some projects to edit. Stay safe, stay at home, and have a good one. A budget films production.